when the time came to actually prepare for this trip through Africa, Martin and I were looking to buy a Land Rover, a second-hand Land Rover. We figured that a Land Rover was going to be the best vehicle for driving from London to Cape Town because it was Africa and it was the British 4x4, and surely we'd be able to get maintenance and spare parts all the way, and the Land Rover was designed for this. It's the best vehicle. Of course, later we learned about Toyotas, particularly the Hilux, which is what we should have taken, but in any case, we didn't know that. So I was walking with a friend in, what was that part of town? Wandsworth, near Wandsworth Common. And she was looking for a house to buy. And I was living nearby. We walked across the common, then we were walking up and down the streets, just looking at anything that might be available. Excuse me. I'm walking down the street. What do I see? But a very strange Land Rover with a conventional cab, and then a totally flat wooden back, like a pickup truck, but with no sides to it. Obviously handmade, custom made, and a pair of big boots sticking out from underneath. So we walked up there, and I said hello, and this guy stuck his head out, very elfish looking guy with dark hair. Hello, mate. And I said, you look like somebody who could tell us about driving a Land Rover through Africa. And he said, well, it's maintaining Land Rovers, just come back 5 years maintaining Land Rovers in the Sudan. What do you want to know? So I said, well, basically everything. I said, we've got no experience. This is the trip we're going to make. She said, yeah, okay, I can help you with that. Eventually, we ended up paying James to help us strip the Land Rover we bought down to nothing and rebuild it. The philosophy we ended up with was that neither of us is a mechanic. We don't really know much about what we're doing, but if we take it to pieces and we put it back together, if something breaks, we can probably reassemble it. So along came James. What a character. What an amazing character. It turns out that the house outside which I found him belongs to his family. So he had the basement, and I think his sister lived on the first and the ground floor and the first floor, and then maybe there was another brother, I'm not quite sure. So James was amazing. He had a totally unique way of understanding things. No little formal education, left school, I think, sounds like he ran away from school about 14 or 15. But an understanding, an intuitive understanding of mechanics and electrics. So for instance, I was trying to put some spotlights, some searchlights on the front of the Land Rover, and I kept blowing the fuse. I kept putting them in wrong. Now, I studied physics, and part of that we did solid state and electronics and that kind of thing, and I'd experimented with building radios and things myself. I thought I knew something, and I just kept blowing these fuses. And I said to James, I don't understand this. I'm looking at this diagram, I'm putting them on, I'm doing this, I'm earthing them, and I'm doing this. And I guess an electronic engineer or an electrical person would have explained it to me in terms of the way that the current flows and the potential difference and the voltage and the earth, and not James. James said, now look, mate, you need to understand, right? Electricity is like water, isn't it? It goes from the top to the bottom. So you look at where it says top, it's going to go down to the bottom, right? So it's going to go from the electrical system, it wants to go to the ground. Now you want it to work. You want it to go through these lights and make them come on, and that's a lot of effort, right? But look at the way you've got this set up. The electricity flows, right? It comes here and it says, okay, I can go through these lights and do all this bloody work and to get down to the ground, or I could just go straight down here. Well, that's not stupid, is it? It's going to go down there. It's going to turn off, it's going to go down there. Your lights are not going to work. And it goes down there so bloody fast downhill because it's too easy. It overheats and you blow the fuse. So, oh, yeah. Okay, I never thought about it like that. I get it. Then we get a sticky bolt, a bolt that just wouldn't come loose, and I'll be stripping it. So you put the socket on and you pull, and eventually I'd pull too hard, and then the bolt is like a shape like this, and you end up breaking this piece off. Boom. You've stripped the nut and you can't get it off. And then you have to, file it down and use a smaller socket and get it off. It's a pain. I said to James, no problem. Whoop, off, 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 off. Now, some of it is engineers. I know this from flying helicopters. Engineers are amazing. They have engineers' fingers, engineers' strength. I'm not a weak person, but I will be holding onto a bolt and I will be trying to turn this bolt, and I cannot do it to save my life. And an engineer 20 kilos lighter than I am will just go to it and just go do it with their fingers. They've got these amazing fingers. Now, part of it is that. But the other thing is, James says, no, mate, you do it like that. It's stubborn, right? It doesn't want to come off. And you're pushing and you're pulling and it doesn't want to come off and it's fighting you, and then you're going to strip it. It's no good. You don't want to do it like that. You've got to catch it by surprise, mate. And I'm thinking, like, catch it by surprise? Surely that's got nothing to do with the physics. You can't surprise a bolt. And he's like, no, mate, look at it. Look at this. Here. Puts the spanner on the bolt. He says, watch. He says, like, it's not ready. It's not ready. It's not looking. And whack, done. And it will come off. And then I would try his technique, and I'd been stripping this bolt, stripping the next one, strip the next one. I'd try his technique, it will come off. And it bothered me. In the end, I ended up researching it. And this is pre-Google, pre-internet. Well, I think the internet was there, but very rudimentary, and certainly not like Google, how does this work? How do you sneak up on a bolt? But I researched it, and I found that he's absolutely correct. There's this principle of how friction works, and whether you rapidly introduce torque or you slowly increase torque, and how you can... Anyway, he was right. The physics matched exactly what he described, but he just knew it. So we worked with James, I think it was about 6-7 weeks, almost every night after work, stripped the Land Rover, put it back together. We got to where we could take a Land Rover carburetor, strip it, put it back together in, I think 15 minutes was about our record. We're not ace mechanics, but we had taken everything to pieces, so in theory we could put it back together, which was the idea. Just before we leave, one evening I was doing something with James by myself. Martin wasn't there, and I said to James, I said, we're going next week, mate. We've got an appearance on Sky TV, and then we're driving, we're going. He said, are we ready? Are we going to make it? And he looked at me and he said, look, mate, I wouldn't let you go if I wasn't 100% sure you're going to make it. You're going to do fine. I said, okay, thanks, James. That helps me, makes me feel a bit more confident that it's not going to be a disaster. We set off on the trip. It was 3 months and 3 days to make that trip. We tried to make it to arrive for the Rugby World Cup, the first one in the democratic South Africa in 1995. We were in Victoria Falls, so we were on the border. We were almost there, and we did have a fantastic time watching the final there. We almost made it. We had numerous issues and some breakdowns, nothing too major, and we made it. After that, when I flew back to the UK, I went round to James's house to go see him and thank him. I knocked on the door and his sister answered. No. James doesn't live here anymore. He's built himself a canal boat, and he's somewhere on this section of canal outside of London. So I said, okay. And I saw she had a mail, letters on the side, and I saw it was addressed to her, and it was addressed to the Honourable, whatever her name was, care of, and it was a bank. And I said, I just happened to notice that. Sorry, I'm being rude, but what does this mean? You're like, not royalty, but you know, you're aristocrats. And she's like, oh, don't worry about that. She's a lovely lady. Don't worry about that. No. It's just a family title. You know, we're involved in banking, and that's it. Okay. Later, I looked it up, and she was the Honourable Lady something, and the bank that they were involved in was as, I'm not sure about total owners, but some of the owners of the bank that the Queen banks with. But James, you know, we never would have known. He's the Honourable James somebody. So I Drove up to the canal bank where he was supposed to be. The M25, which is the orbital motorway around London, was right there, but it was on these huge concrete pillars. It was, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 meters above the surface. So it was over this canal. I was walking down the canal towpath, and there weren't many boats. There were quite a few, but not dozens. And I was looking, okay, beautiful, long, narrow boat, green and blue and red and little flowers. And I was like, I can't imagine that's James's. Keep walking, another one, beautiful, beautiful boat, another one. Then I see something that looks like a Land Rover. It looks like it's been welded together from huge sheets of metal, and by rights it shouldn't even float. It should be sunk to the bottom of the water in Land Rover blue, this kind of smoky grey kind of blue. And I was like, I bet that's it. As I walked up, there's James sitting on the back. I said, hello, James. He was like, mate, how are you? And I said, oh, good. I said, I just wanted to come. I spoke to your sister. I just wanted to come and say thank you. You know, we made it. Thanks to you. He was like, what? Really, mate? Struth, I never thought you were going to make it. I said, but I asked you and you told me. And he said, yeah, but then you might not have gone. So you had to, didn't I? I had to say it. So I had a cup of tea with James on the back of his canal boat. Thanked him again, said goodbye, and never saw him again. But I'd really love to find out what adventures he got up to next. What a character.